What's up, everyone? I'm Garrett, and welcome to Hive Sports, where we talk all things NFL and college football. Today, we're going to be breaking down week zero matchups of the college football season. Football is back, college football is back, and we got some great matchups for you all. We're going to go through four games and give you our favorite bets for each matchup. We're going to start out with Iowa State versus Kansas State. This is an interesting matchup and one that was played last year in the Big 12 where Iowa State actually came out on top 29 to 21 in that game. But this season, it's a little bit different, right? Rocco Becht is losing his top two weapons in that offense, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both respectively going on day two of the NFL draft to the Houston Texans. And I mean, that speaks for itself, right? Two very talented receivers. It's hard to replace them, especially with just, a couple of transfers and Chase Saul and Xavier Townsend. And I don't think that they're going to be able to keep up with the Kansas State offense because I think that K-State offense is going to be explosive this year with Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards. I think Jace Brown steps up as a wide receiver one for that offense. And I think Avery Johnson gets a little bit overhated as a passer. I know he's still developing in that realm, but he's a true dual threat. And he showed some flashes down the stretch. He had some games where he had some very nice deep balls. He's putting better touch on that pass, and he had a better big time throw percentage than Rocco Becht last year, and he also had a lower turnover worthy play percentage. So that's two indicators I like to look at. And Rocco Becht had a much better receiving core than Avery Johnson did last year. So I like K-State to cover the 3 points. Rocco Becht could struggle. Iowa State's offense as a whole could struggle, especially if they can't establish a run. They have a couple of good running backs in Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. However, their offensive line is questionable, and there's a lot of uncertainty there. They could not block for their running backs last year, and they really had to throw the ball a lot. So if they have to do that this year, they may not have the same success they had last year throwing the ball with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. And digging deeper, one way to play this game is taking the under on team total for Iowa State's offense. So you can play it like that. Another way you can play it, Dylan Edwards props. If you like K-State's offense, you like K-State's rushing attack against that weak Iowa State rushing defense, you could take some Dylan Edwards rushing totals props on the over as well. All right, so game two, Fresno State at Kansas. Kansas is favored by 12 and a half points at home, but I think that some people might be overlooking Fresno State a little bit. Obviously, not a great program last year, but they brought in Matt Entz, and I think he could be a potential culture shifter, a guy who could come in and revamp that program. In 5 years as a head coach at North Dakota State, he made the playoffs all 5 years, had a 60-11 record and a 15-3 record in the playoffs in the FCS. That's definitely impressive. And he came in with a ground and pound approach, a run heavy, defense first approach. And I think he's going to do something similar at Fresno State. So he's going to try to establish the run with Bryson Donaldson, a talented true sophomore running back who had a pretty promising true freshman season last year. So they're going to really try to slow the game down. They're going to play tough defense. I mean, you just hear so much about their camp and how physical it was, how much hitting there was. So he's trying to come in there and establish the culture, defense first, run first. And I think EJ Warner is going to be a capable game manager to keep this game closer than 12 and a half points. So we like Fresno State against the spread. Kansas is hard to trust, right? I mean, Jalon Daniels, he had a 20 touchdown to 20 turnover season last year. So it's really tough to see him returning to his old form, before all those injuries. They lost Devin Neal to the Saints. So there is some turnover on that offense, and they don't have a lot at wide receiver either. Their number one wide receiver is actually a former running back at Alabama, Emmanuel Henderson. So very little production, very little track record at as far as wide receiver options go for Jalon Daniels. So that could be tough for them to put up the amount of points that it takes. And I think that Fresno State against the spread is a very nice value here at -110. Next up is Stanford at Hawaii. Stanford's going to have to get on that plane for the long trip out for the week 0 opener. It's going to be a 2.5 point spread. Stanford is the underdog. They actually open as the favorite, so that line's moved a little bit. It's a 50.5 point total, and we like Hawaii here to cover that 2.5 point spread. And they've been a very, very good bet to cover home openers in the past. And I'm going to bet on them continuing to do so this year against Stanford. It's not a great team that they're facing off against. And you know what? They have a talented young quarterback who really flashed in his sole start last year. It was against the Lobos, who obviously don't have a very good defense, but 469 yards and 5 touchdowns passing, along with 54 more yards on the ground for a true freshman. That is impressive, man. Micah Aliato is going to be entering his true sophomore season. Set up well with Pafole, Ashlock, Nick Senecol returning. He's got Sims returning as his running back, so there's some continuity there. And Stanford, definitely not very much continuity, right? They're bringing in the Oregon State transfer to start. They lost Alec Iomanor, their best offensive weapon by far. So there's not a lot there as far as talent offensively, and defensively it's not much better. So, I mean, maybe long term Andrew Luck can turn this program around. He let Troy Taylor go for that weird bullying scandal. So he is trying to change that culture around, and Frank Reich is the interim coach there in the meantime. But man, he's just not working with a lot. It's a tough, tough gig for Frank Reich, and I think that Hawaii is a good bet here. And last but not least, it's Sam Houston at Western Kentucky. This is a 10.5 point spread right now, favoring Western Kentucky, a 61.5 point total. Not a lot of defense expected in this matchup. But I like Sam Houston with the plus 10.5. I mean, that's just too big of a spread, I think. It shouldn't be creeping into the double digit area when you look at how the teams finished last year. I mean, Sam Houston won 4 of their last 5 games down the stretch, including their bowl game, while on the other hand, Western Kentucky lost 4 of their last 5 games despite starting 8-2. So they faltered a bit down the stretch. There's a ton of turnover there as well, with 16 of their starters on offense and defense being transfers. It's hard to bet on a team like that hitting the ground running and beating a tough Sam Houston team by more than 10.5 points. So I like Sam Houston there. They have some continuity returning on offense. They have their starting quarterback, Hunter Watson. He's a run first guy, but that kind of, it lines up well with Western Kentucky's weakness on defense, which is their run defense. And they're actually just a very bad defense as a whole, one of the worst run defenses in the country. So Sam Houston should have some success putting up points against Western Kentucky. And then if they can slow down Western Kentucky's passing attack, because they actually had a pretty good passing defense last year, then I really expect them to make this a lot closer than 10.5 points. So Sam Houston's a sneaky pick here for you. And that wraps up our week 0 college football best bet. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe if you did, and we got more college football content on the way.